Hey guys, welcome back to Robotics the YouTube channel, and in this video we are going to begin a new series of Arduino. We are going to study Arduino in English language and in Hindi as well. So if you don't know about Arduino, what is Arduino? So we are going to explore that in this video. But before we start to that topic, we have to understand why we are studying Arduino and why it's important. So let's talk about first thing. If you are an engineer and if you are looking for embedded system or you wanna just start your career in robotics, Arduino is such a great way to just get started. Then if you are going to if you are just a beginner and you are just making hobbies projects, so it's also good for you because it will be helpful for you to learn how coding performs on hardware. It will be an actual hardware, and then you will understand the power of Arduino. Then you can also switch on to bigger projects like STM32, and there are so many microcontrollers, right? But Arduino is going to be the basic, the baby step that you are going to take. So with that said, let's start today's video and let's understand what is Arduino. So let's start. So I have made an PPT for you. I have made some slides for you, and with that we are going to understand what is Arduino, right? So let's start it. But before we understand what is an Arduino, we have to understand what are the microcontrollers. So you might have seen microcontrollers. There are so many microcontrollers out there, and if you have Googled what is an Arduino, you might also find the term microcontroller. So Arduino is a microcontroller, of course, and we have to understand what are the microcontroller first, right? So what is a microcontroller? The word itself says micro, which means it's going to be smaller in size. Then it will be a controller, which means it will control something. All right, it will be micro, smaller in size. Then it will be a controller. It's going to control something, right? So you might have seen your cell phones, you might have seen calculators, and your AC remote, air conditioning remote, right? There are so many stuff that are going around us that use microcontroller. So microcontroller is nothing but it's an electronic chip. It's smaller in size, and then it's a controller that is going to control something. More specifically, it's going to be an electronic component that is going to control some other electronic component, and then it can control an hardware as well. Okay, so the microcontroller is just an electronic component. Now let's understand what are the microcontrollers. Okay, so you might have seen a computer, right? A computer is there, right? So a microcontroller is just like a computer, but it's kind of different. Now computer have so many parts. It have a CPU, right? Then we have RAM. We have RAM. You might have heard of RAM, random access memory, and then we have ROM. So this is a basic architecture of a computer. So we have seen that in a computer you can remove the RAM. You can remove it, yes. You attach RAM externally, right? If you are going to see, I can put the RAM images next to me. So RAMs can be inserted and exerted, and you can just remove or add RAMs in computer. Then in CPU, you can also change the CPU, right? You can change the CPU i5 to i7, then i9, right? You can change the CPU. Then you can change the ROM as well. So you might have heard hard drive, solid state drive, SSD. So there are some basic computer architecture, and they are all swappable. They can be replaced. They can be inserted more. Then you can also swap them, right? So it's computer in the computer's case, you can change all of these three factors. So a computer uses something called microprocessor, right? So this is a microprocessor, not a microcontroller, right? Now, what we are going to study is microcontroller. What is it? Microcontroller. Now, why we are comparing it with a microprocessor? So let's understand it a bit further. Okay. So we are comparing microcontroller with microprocessor. In microcontroller, what you can't do swapping of these particular parts. In a microcontroller, there is going to be CPU, then RAM, then ROM. What we have seen in this is there is going to be a CPU IC, right? You are going to see a IC that is going to be a CPU, but the RAM and ROM, you can change them, you can touch them, you can also add more, right? But in microcontroller, they all are built into one single chip. They are all built into one single chip, right? They are built into one single chip. So that's what a microcontroller is, and that's why it's very cheap to manufacture, it's very reliable. That's why your calculators don't cost much, they are very cheap, right? Because they are using a microcontroller, not a microprocessor. If you are using microprocessor, then you have to use a RAM, then you have to add ROM, and then the cost is going to be very higher. That's why microcontroller is a single package that is going to contain all CPU, RAM, and ROM. Now let's talk about what is an Arduino. Arduino is an, of course, a microcontroller. The microcontroller will have its own RAM, its own ROM, but it's built into one single chip. Let's talk about what is an Arduino. So Arduino is a microcontroller. We have seen it, but it's an open source electronics platform. Just not an Arduino, just not an microcontroller. It's more than that. This is going to be an open source electronics platform. What do you mean by open source? Open source means I can, what do you mean by open source? I can change the code, I can modify the code, right? I can modify it, I can change it, I can reverse engineer it. Why? Because it's open source. It's available freely for everyone. So it's an open source electronics platform that combines hardware. You can see the next to me is a Arduino Uno, right? The Arduino Uno is a microcontroller and it's a board, ATM card sized board, and it will also have its own software. So whenever you are using the Arduino board, you must connect it to the Arduino software. That's how you are going to program it. So Arduino software is also easy and it's also free. It's also easy and free to use, right? So it's also free to use. Then you don't have to pay anything. You don't even have to pay a single penny if you are going to download the Arduino software. So we are going to see that in third video of this course. Okay. So you can build things. Right? Of course, you can build a lot of projects that can sense, respond, and act. That are going to sense, respond, and then act. Okay. So this is the basic fundamental core of robotics. But before we understand that, we have to understand what is Arduino. Okay, so we have seen what is Arduino. Now let's talk about where the Arduino is used. It's used in robotics. It's used in heavily robotics, right? It can be used in robotic cars. It can be used in arms. You can use it in obstacle avoiders, right? So we use it. We use it in many more robotic projects. Then you can use it in home automation. What do you mean by home automation? Suppose there is going to be night, right? There's going to be night after 6, it's going to be dark. But every time I have to go and I have to press a switch to turn the lights on. But with Arduino, I don't have to do that. I can use a light detection sensor, and when the light detection sensor detects any kind of darkness, the lights are going to be automatically turned on. That is called home automation, which means you don't have to do anything. It will be It will be controlling your home automatically. So that's what automatic lights do. They also have an Arduino similar chips. Then we have smart switches that can turn on and off things accordingly in a particular time, maybe in particular scenario. Like let's talk, if the temperature of this room is very high, my air conditioning will be on. So that's what smart switches are. Then there are IoT projects. What do you mean by IoT? It's an Internet of Thing. We are also bringing a course on IoT, right? So it's an Internet of Things. which means you have so many sensors, you have so many microcontrollers, and they are constantly talking over the internet, and you can control something by your phone, by your computer, and you are going to be on a remote location. It doesn't need to be near your home. You can be anywhere in the world and you can still control your home. So that's called IoT, Internet of Things. Then we have STEM learning. Of course, we are studying this. So this is also an STEM learning. So we are studying about Arduino. So this is an STEM learning. It's good for STEM learning, right? So we are studying here just like that. Now let's talk about the two main parts of Arduino. So Arduino is just not in hardware. Without the software, the Arduino is going to be Arduino is not going to survive, right? It needs its software, right? The software is going to be Arduino IDE. But before that, Arduino Uno is going to be our hardware. There are so many Arduinos, Arduino Nano, Mega, Mini, Micro, but we are going to use Arduino Uno because it's very helpful for beginners. Okay, it's a physical board, right? It's a physical board. It performs action in the real world, and then it can blink LEDs. It can spin motors. You can use it to spin motors, right? You can use, and you can make a robot that can move using its motors and wheels. Then it can also read sensors. Just we have talked. If the temperature of this room is rising, the temperature sensor can read the temperature data, and it can force the Arduino to open up a switch, and then my AC will be on. Just like that, there are going to be so many projects. Then there is software. Okay, so the software is called Arduino IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. That is going to be a program for our computer, right? A program just like MS Word, MS Excel. Let's talk about MS PowerPoint, on which we are playing this PPT. So it's going to be a software that you can download for free, and it's called Arduino IDE. It can give instruction to the board by letting you write and upload the code. Okay, so what we are going to do here is Arduino. We are going to connect Arduino to our PC, right? We are going to connect it to our PC, and then we are going to give Arduino instruction using our PC, and we can make any kind of projects. Okay, so the instruction, what do you mean by instruction? Instruction is nothing but coding. Instruction is nothing but coding. Okay, so instruction is nothing but coding. So we are going to make a lot of codes in upcoming videos, so stay tuned for that. Now, how Arduinos work? We have studied what are the Arduino, two sections of Arduino, right? Two parts of Arduino. Then let's talk about how Arduinos work. So whenever you are going to make a project, you are going to include a lot of sensors. Okay, you can use buttons, you can use gas sensors, temperature sensors, you can use light sensors. So there are so many sensors, right? Then you have to make a code, right? You have to make a code, and you have to feed it to Arduino using Arduino IDE. Then Arduino is going to process all of the data that is coming from input sensors, and then it can run the code. Okay, it will read the input from this, and then it will run the code. Then it's going to process something. What is going to process? It's going to process the data that is coming from the sensors, and then it can move the actuators. Actuators are our LEDs, motors, buzzers, right? And then this loop is going to be continued. So this is acting on a very simple phenomena that is used in robotics, that is called sense, think, and act. Okay, this is how a robot works. It will sense using its sensors, then it will think, it will process everything according to your code, then it will act using its motors or LEDs, buzzer, and there are so many stuff that you can do with. act, right? So that's how an Arduino works. There are going to be inputs that are going to be coming from sensors, buttons, gas sensors, temperature sensors. So many sensors are out there. Then it will process the input coming from the sensors. It's going to be calculate the scenarios, right? And then it's going to give output to actuators, and it is going to run LEDs, motors, and buzzers. And this loop is going to be continued. So what can we build with Arduino? We have studied what is Arduino, how it works, right? Now let's talk about what can we build with it. So you can build a robot car. We can make a robot car, okay? A robot car that can move and avoid obstacles. So how cool is that? A robot car is going to be there, and if you put some obstacle around it, obstacles in front of it, it will just avoid them, and then it will change its path. So that's going to be possible with Arduino. Then you can make smart homes. Okay, we are going to do that as well. Those are called home automations, right? So you can control the lights, appliances automatically. Then you can make gas detectors. So gas detectors are very useful in factories, industries, mines. So you can make gas detectors as well, right? Alert when the dangerous gases are detected, of course. So there are so many sensors for that, and we are going to see how we use it. Then you can use plant watering system. So you must, if you have plants, it's very crucial. If you have to, you have to just give them water, enough water on a very particular time, right? So you can make a system that can do that for you. You don't have to water your plants every time. So you can also do that, right? You can also make a plant watering system. So after that, we are going to see what is an Arduino, right? We are going to see what is an Arduino, what are its components, what are the parts, and we are going to see installation of Arduino IDE as well. And then we are going to make our first code. So that was our first video for this course, and I hope you understood some basic phenomena of what is an Arduino and why we use it. In upcoming videos, we are going to continue that and see you next time.